Hi, so welcome to another Retvlog, and I know I'm bringing this out on a Monday, and I usually bring it out at a weekend. There is a good reason for this, and that is because I've been waiting for someone to put a post on the official forums. We've been discussing this and the Ret Paladin Discord for a few days, and this is very much based on a couple of things. First of all, it's based on the posts we all made on Wowhead about the state of Paladins, and also some discussions that have been taking place between the class designer chiefly working with Rets at the moment, although specifically at this moment they're doing Frost Mages, but they've been doing Rets. They're the ones who are responsible for the very nice change we've had and the recipients of those cookies I sent, and you know, they'll be working on it again soon. So I want to talk about a couple of very major things in which you can have your say, and it's a say that will be listened to this time. There's something novel. But first thing I want to do is very quick discussion about the Haven post I put out yesterday. I'm not going to go over too many details of that. Just to bear in mind, I've been looking through the responses on the forums, particularly the NA forum, but you know, equally the EU one to a lesser extent. You don't get as many replies there because everyone knows that doesn't really get read. Now, in terms of whether you think Haven should get some commemoration, and I particularly think an NPC, you will be in one of three camps. Either you will be in favour of it, you will not care one way or the other, or you will be opposed to it. So here's the way I would like people to behave. This is a plea, obviously. If you are opposed to it, there is nothing wrong with replying on the thread with the reasons for your opposition to it. That's fine. And people have done that. And that's okay. If you don't care one way or the other, then you don't respond to it at all. Simply saying no one cares. Like I saw one on the EU forums, simply saying no one cares. Now that's trolling because you're not adding anything to the argument. You're not saying why it shouldn't be done. You're not saying why it should be done. And also saying no one cares is basically making out that this person doesn't represent a significant number of people as well. That's just trolling. If you see any responses like that, I would just advertise that you report it as trolling because that's what it is. Don't do that. If you don't care one way or the other, that's fine, just don't respond to it. I mean, I don't care about the vast majority of posts on the official forums. I don't go through each day going, don't care, don't care, don't care. Do you know how long that would take? And then if you do support it, here's what I would really ask for. Don't engage with the people who don't support it. Because what happens then, you turn it into a petition thread. That's not what it's for, by the way. It's not a petition thread. I know it appears to be one. What it is an ideas thread. That's what it wants to be. What would your ideas be for a suitable way to commemorate? So that if Blizzard did decide to commemorate him, and there's no evidence that they're going to decide to commemorate him just based on the strength of feeling, but if there's a good idea that appeals, then they're more likely to. That's my reasoning anyway. So that's what I would like people to do. If you are in favour of it, you know, look at that video yesterday. I'm not going to link it again down here. Just please put ideas in there. Don't turn it into a yes he should, no he shouldn't pantomime, because then, you know, it'll probably get locked anyway because it'll just end up going off topic. It'll end up being a petition thread, which are not allowed. And there was me trying to be cunning. So on to the main meal of the day. So here's what happens. So we know how it is. The old meme that, you know, we say things, Blizzard don't really listen. It's sort of true and it's sort of not true. It's not true in the sense that Blizzard developers do directly ask a very small number of people their opinions about things. Now, obviously in Legion was a classic example of where they didn't really listen properly to it, because we ended up with a load of stuff that we said is not going to work, and we gave very good reasons why it wouldn't work, and lo and behold, none of it worked. It's not like some of it didn't work and some did, because you know how it is. You know, someone could come out with predictions. They can come out with 10 predictions. You know how people on YouTube go, oh, I reckon it's going to be this, and that. You come out with 10 predictions. One of them ends up being true just by pure fluke. And then, of course, you go, well, I said this, and I'll link you back to a video where I said this. And they say nothing about the 9 things they got wrong. It wasn't like that. Every single one, without exception, was the thing that failed. This time round is very different, though, because not only as a class developer communicating, but responding as well. and actually taking it seriously. It's not to say that it's doing everything we say. It's not like, you know, he's got a notebook there and we're going, yes, we should have this and this and this and this and this, and he's going, yeah, right, I'll do that then. It's not like that. He still has to believe that it's going to be sensible to do it, but he is very much responding and kicking ideas backwards and forwards, and we've got proper engagement. And I'll tell you something else. If you add to the thread that I've linked below, or if you post anything sensible about Retribution Paladins, and by sensible, I don't mean say, oh, our mobility sucks, you should do something about it. Remember, that what they want is they want you to identify the specific problem, to demonstrate the specific problem, not just based on anything subjective will just be instantly dismissed, and say in detail what you should do about it with some evidence to back it up. Now, of course, most people don't do that, but if you post something sensible, they will read it. They've said they'll read it, and they have been reading it. So now is very much the time. So what has Skeletor been talking about in this post? There's two main things that I want to talk about that's really, really important. There's a few things that have been discussed. So normally, you know, when people tell me about, because I don't have direct contact with the developers myself, but I talk to people who do, and they occasionally share things with me, which I'm supposed to not talk about. Which is maddening, because for me, I believe that everything should be out in the open. Blizzard have different ideas. To be fair to them, they just have this feeling, and they're not wrong, that if they say they're thinking about a thing and then they end up not doing it, a load of people that would have liked the thing are really disappointed and say that Blizzard are going back on their word. That's probably true, so I can't really blame them too much, but still it is annoying, because I wish it was just all out in the open. But there's a few things that he's quite happy for the community to discuss. First one is cooldowns. So what we've been noticing in the BFA is that we've had cooldowns on baseline abilities increase, where the rotation's quite slow. Normally, I mean, I've been saying I'm not too concerned with it, because I see that as a tuning issue, and that can be left till the end, no problem. However, there's a philosophy at work here which I think needs knocking on the head. It's deliberate. They deliberately want us to have much lower uptime, or active time, if you want to think of it in those terms, than in Legion. So the percentage that's been bandied around in Legion is typically in Legion we have about 95% active time. In other words, 95% of the time we've got an ability we can use when the global cooldown's gone. So, you know, there's very little downtime. There's about 5% downtime, roughly. They want much more downtime for a reason, because they want us to be able to use our utility abilities in it. I know, right? What utility? So, okay. Things like Selfless Healer. Do me a favour. Word of Glory. Now, Word of Glory is looking pretty strong at the moment, I have to say. But that being said, it's got a recharge time of a minute. I know we get 2 charges. A recharge time of a minute, and it costs 3 holy power. Also, I'm not sure that they're going to keep it as strong as it is. So, you know, my view is, don't give us deliberate downtime to be able to use abilities like pissy little heals that don't do anything. And it's not that downtime in itself is inherently bad, because you've got to bear this in mind. If we have more downtime, that means our individual abilities hit harder, and actually having a bit more downtime can help us out in certain fights. Fights, for example, where you have to move out for a little bit and then move in, that's ruinous for a Ret Paladin, because basically we need to be using our abilities all the time. It's very, very fast paced. So if we have to move out even for a few seconds, some classes, for example, they can use that to charge up whatever. So a rogue, for example, I mean, no one likes, obviously no melee likes moving out, of course, but a rogue, you know, makes sure to spend their energy, then at least they're getting some energy back while they're stood out. But we're just straight up losing damage. We don't build up energy or anything like that. We build up holy power, but we build that up with our builders, which are other abilities. So, you know, to have more downtime would mean that that'd be less punishing, so that could be quite good. The problem is that Retribution Paladin has been a very fast-paced spec for many years now. In fact, you're talking a good 10 years now, aren't you? And people have got used to that, and people associate it with it, and people like that. So to take that away, I think, would be a mistake. So that's my view there. We don't have enough utility to warrant it. Where there's some utility that we can sensibly use, we'll just lose DPS to use it. Let's just to say it like that. That's what most people would prefer. I'm not saying there's anything inherently wrong with that philosophy, by the way. It's just that it's a simple popularity thing. It's not a popular philosophy. But that's one of those things. Maybe it is. I mean, you need to add your thoughts on that. Read through the post. It's 4 posts long, by the way, so it's a bit of reading. It's worth reading through. But that's my view. I will be adding my own response to it at some point, but it went up. You know, I'm back at work now. I need to formulate a proper response. And then I'll put my response up as well. But that's what I would be talking about. Now, the second thing is Hammer of Wrath. Hammer of Wrath is very much in the air. It can be all sorts of things at the moment. Where it is right now on the alpha is it's a talent, and it works just like it did in the past. It does holy damage. It's now affected by mastery, which is, you know, is the way it's intended. And we can use it sub 20%, so it's an execute. We can also use it during Avenging Wrath. Now, here are some options that are seriously being considered, and all you need to do is to say which you'd prefer and why, and you could help nudge a decision. And you want to do it, by the way, before they, you know, start working on it again, and because it may not, you might not see any change in the next build. You may do. I don't know where they are with it. It may wait until the build after, but some possibilities. So one possibility is it's just made a pure execute. It's made much beefier, but it's only an execute. That's not the one being favoured at the moment. One that's been favoured at the moment seems to be, but these things can change in a moment. I mean, it is sometimes quite weird. Sometimes they'll be favouring one particular thing, and then they'll just change their mind without any warning at all. But anyway, the other idea is to make it baseline as an execute. So Hammer of Wrath baseline, but it's only an execute ability. And the talent that replaces Hammer of Wrath means that you can use it during Avenging Wrath. Slight downside with that is with Crusade. Crusade basically could make Hammer of Wrath quite powerful. Too powerful, potentially. So, there is a potential solution I think Sol Sacra came up with, which is that maybe if we basically did that, so we have Hammer of Wrath baseline as an execute, have the talent that it can be used during Avenging Wrath, but we swap it with Divine Purpose. So then the Hammer of Wrath talent, just the talent, because remember we can have Hammer of Wrath as a baseline ability, but just as an execute, which I'd be in favour of. But the Hammer of Wrath talent is in direct competition with Crusade, and that means that, you know, you don't end up with a situation where Crusade makes it too powerful and therefore impossible to balance. So that's a possibility there. Now, there are a few other things that they're also talking about as well. Skeletor goes over some of those as well in there. But for me personally, those are of lesser consequence. For me, the key things are, well, obviously, as you know, the key things for me are getting rid of the Retribution passive. And when I do formulate my response, you can bet your ass I'll be putting that in as well. But the main things from those 2 points of view is, I would say, just from the point of view, it's unpopular to have deliberate downtime to use utility abilities, because unless they're going to give us a good suite of them, how often do we actually use them? And they are talking about significantly increasing our downtime. Sol Sacra's been running sims, Skeletor's been running sims. You know, they're theory crafters, by the way, proper theory crafters. I don't have the technical ability to be able to program simcraft. There isn't because I did ask, there isn't a Legion Alpha simcraft which I can just run my own sims. You basically have to build your own, and I don't have the technical skill to do that. So all I can do is very, very basic stuff on spreadsheets and things, which I did in Legion, and I will do as well at some point to highlight a few things. But yeah, but they are the ones who actually are able to build it up and run sims and demonstrate that actually you've got quite high downtime with because certain talent combinations really, you know, bring a lot of downtime into it. Some other talent combinations, of course, reduce it right down, that downtime, but it's not necessarily talents that you'd want to put together. So that's another thing. Now, there are various thoughts for other talents as well, so I'll let you read the post. I'll put the link down below, as I said. The other thing I could sort of suggest as well is, don't forget, on the issue of mobility, there are options. This guy is open to some of the options. My preferred option is Long Arm of the Law. Admittedly, I'd prefer it if the judgment cooldown was less, but remember, the reason why judgment cooldown, because it did become less on the alpha, and then they've bunged it back up to 12 seconds, but that's all part of that philosophy on increasing downtime. So, you know, if they reduce the cooldown of that would make it better. I'd prefer that to Pursuit of Justice, but I can absolutely see him being convinced to replace Cavalier with either long arm of the law or pursuit of justice if there was a sufficiently strong argument made for it. So do that as well. But don't just go on and post, oh, our mobility's crap, can we have some mobility? I mean, well, don't do that. Please don't do that. So there we go. I'll leave you to it. Go and have a look at the post. Maybe sleep on it before you formulate your opinion. Write them down. They are going to be read. But they're only going to be read if they're sensible. Don't go reactionary on it. And do remember, we are now talking to a class designer who actually listens and is responsive and is very, very sensible. So don't treat him as if this is the same, you know, so-and-so that you were talking at during Legion. Thanks very much for listening. If you've enjoyed it, don't forget to share, like, subscribe, comment here, but also comment on the forum where it's going to do more good. Until next time, I'll see you later.